How are you guys doing? This is Ryan. Welcome back to the channel. And this week's video, I want to talk about America not being a capitalist country because it's a very misunderstood thing. And then, tying in why I believe crypto, and specifically a crypto like Bitcoin Cash, solves this. So let's unpack that a bit. America is not a capitalist country. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? And actually, I believe America is a very corporatist, socialist country, and you get to see why socialism is becoming more and more appealing. First of all, socialism is becoming appealing because the capital structure in the country now is very difficult. The middle class is getting moved out, and things like homes and just about everything is getting a lot more expensive. And you get out of college with all this debt and you try to go in the world and try to get yourself going, and you feel like it's just impossible. You're playing this impossible game of advancing in society, and then you get told there's this thing called socialism that kind of just gives you these things as rights. It's awfully appealing, and you can almost get it. Me as someone that's a hardcore anarcho-capitalist. So, why aren't we not capitalists? What do we lack in capitalistic structure? I think first of all, if you just look at the money system and the currency system, that is obviously a government system. Government controls the money. They have almost like a monopolistic force of the dollar as money, and crypto is working to disrupt that, but it faces certain challenges that just need to be disobeyed. So whether it's a cryptocurrency is treated as a security or is it treated as a commodity, it still doesn't have certain currency protections on capital gains and things like that. And so you kind of have this hegemonic force of the dollar that you don't have any free market control of. It's not a capitalistic system. It has choices and competition. With the dollar, it's really lacking because of government strength. So therefore, we are left with a very uncompetitive and likely self-serving dollar. And when I mean self-serving, it serves who controls the government. And that leads into the corporatist side of it. But there's another side of money that we have to talk about that the government has such control over, monopolistic control over, not free market control over. Why we are not capitalistic is because the central bank controls the rate of risk. The rate of risk is interest rates. If I was going to loan a friend money or someone in business money, I would want to decide how much money I want to get paid back on for taking the risk of that person and also the opportunity of investing it elsewhere. So like whenever you do an investment, a lot of people will just say, hey, how does this return against the S&P 500, like a general standard of return of like 9% historically? Am I going to lend money for more than that or for less than that? Well, if it's a sure bet, maybe a little bit less. If it seems riskier, maybe I'm going to go a little bit higher or something like that. You have to look at your opportunities and what the actual risk is. So when the federal government, wants to dictate that, they're guessing what that should be. And if you think about how dangerous price fixing and guessing what the price of something should be, you have to look at history. So you can go and look at something like Soviet Union back in the day. They did not use free market systems to price things. So they would often try to look and see what America was pricing things at and kind of try to copy that, but they would guess. They would guess what a loaf of bread should cost. And because they weren't using real free market solutions, it was a government guess. They can never always keep an adequate amount of bread on the shelves, or they would have way too much where it would be rotting. There would be massive inefficiencies, where we don't see those types of inefficiencies in a real free market system. So when you look at the general structure of the money system's not even a free market system, you're definitely not in a capitalistic system. You have a currency that is very susceptible to corporatism. And that's what we really live in, the corporate structure. And if you look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr., his presidential bid, very fascinating. People think because he's a Democrat that he's for these types of socialistic type systems. But he's actually, so he has some socialism that he's for, more than me, to be honest. But certainly small government by today's standards. And his real thing is fighting corporatism. So, a lot of people get on him for being anti-vaccine. He's just pointing out that the vaccine industry is a corporatist industry. And there's such protection in the media mob. If you call out that this could be a corporatist shady thing, that they have all this shield protection of government and these billion-dollar companies coercing the public into medicines that may not have good science, they won't even debate it because they say it's not even a fair debate to debate it. So stupid. What they're really doing is they're creating a moat around their business. A moat is like it's kind of like an ancient, not really ancient, like a medieval type thing, where like you would have your kingdom and then you would build a strong moat around it so no one could come and attack you. In businesses, that's what they'd use the government for. A lot of these large corporations create moats, and usually by government force, and they shove these things down your throat. And that's just an example. And it's very bad at, like we always knew the pharmaceutical companies were like this, but he's really shining light on it. And because it's something that's so controversial as vaccines, like it's kind of harder to talk about, but kudos to him for going after such a controversial topic, because vaccines, I do believe, are very important, but I also think there's a lot of bull crap in it. So anyways, so the decay, and of course the big thing he has to say is the military-industrial complex too, obviously. One of the biggest corporatist shams that we all deal with. It keeps a constant state of war going on, and just continuous propaganda to keep you in war. And same thing, kind of happened with, let's say, COVID. What they did to Joe Rogan, like if you go to the CNN clip, they literally discolored his face because he didn't take the vaccine, and he was using like ivermectin and different things. They try to make him like really like a quack because he didn't take the vaccine and was using other forms of medicine to cure himself from COVID. Literally just straight propaganda machine. I was at a CNN, but all these large Fox News, MSNBC, they're all just corporatist mouthpieces, and they're going away, which is good. Just want to make sure they get replaced by a little bit more honest form of journalism. So, excuse me. But how does Bitcoin Cash solve this? Well, what happens is there's these allocations of wealth that continuously get fed to the corporate structure, and then inflation. Inflation is probably the biggest culprit towards what I see as a wanting need for socialism, because you just feel like you can't afford anything. So the haves and the have-nots, people have things and people do not have things, becomes too much of a spread. It gets to become social unrest, and we have to look for a solution. So like my family came from Cuba under the rule of Batista, and he was a corporatist as well. This is nothing new, okay? It's nothing unique to the United States. But when the haves are getting richer and the have-nots are getting poorer, it's going to break. You got to have a strong middle class to really keep a non-totalitarian system going. So really the inflation is the biggest thing that continues to funnel money to the corporatists and those who have assets type of structure. So like, the average man, if he gets very educated and does everything he can to get his hand on assets to escape the inflation that destroys poor people. Socialists don't really care about poor people. They might on some level, but if they really studied it, they would know that the way to protect poor people is to protect their purchasing power. And in an asset like Bitcoin Cash, absolutely has the power to do that. It's just a free market currency, and there's going to be other free market currencies too that are going to compete and challenge Bitcoin Cash and challenge Bitcoin and challenge Ethereum and challenge Monero. Real free markets are going to challenge to preserve everyone's capital so they don't lose their purchasing power. You get fed this Keynesian propaganda that inflation is so good for you. But why can't we challenge it? It keeps capital moving because people's money won't be worth anything, so they continuously spend and it keeps the economy moving, right? Like that would be a thesis for Keynesianism or just inflation, a certain percentage. They know the right percentage, 2 or 3%, right? They're at 10%. They know that's like obviously bad, but they claim they know a number. But if people could continuously get more for their money, they're claiming they would no longer spend. But like, why not have multiple types of currencies and test the system? They claim in Japan that capital stalled due to the currency being too strong, or there's claims of that. And sure, these things are fair to look at, but who cares? Who's to decide? Like, who decides these? Who are the oligarchs and the kings in your life that are telling you, sorry, time issues, that these are the right things for your life? And like, why can't you have multiple options? Well, the answer is you can. And the answer really is in free market capitalism. And I don't know if that's the direction we go in. There's definitely a strong fight for socialism, and it's pretty crazy that well, it's not crazy, right? Because you get a reason why people are pissed off, but I just think from an authoritarian perspective, like it's such like a playbook that just gets played and played and played. And again, that actual individual sovereignty is not the answer, because it's a more thoughtful conversation. It's a deeper conversation. It's based on like this invisible trust, right? It's harder to hold than a strong man in office saying he's going to fix everything for you. That sounds pretty easy, and unfortunately, no one has the capability to do that, at least from what we've seen. So, but let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, guys. I don't think this is a topic you can ever stop talking about, because you just get the feeling in our lifetime something's gonna break. And I can tell you the movement I would like to see is a real respect for sovereignty, personal sovereignty, and just anything that moves freedom and capital back to the individual, rather than the freedom and capital moving towards the corporatists. So we don't live in a capitalistic system. Sorry if you didn't know that. The only good things in your life are likely the more capitalistic, voluntary things, and everything that is hurting you is to do with the more tyrannical nature of the system. So anyways, that's all I got for this week, guys. I'm gonna hit the gym. I should have a pretty cool podcast I did with my brother. It's gonna be dropping on the 8th. I'll share it on my channel here. Kind of talks about a life before my life. I mean, that is just like kind of how I grew up, and specifically about baseball. His podcast is about, which is a big part of my childhood. So I'll share it on here. Thanks for everything, guys. Talk to you soon.